Hey there, I'm Lee Ullman here with some big news from the National Young Farmers Coalition. We're partnering with Heritage Radio Network on a special season of The Farm Report. It's all about what's happening with the Farm Bill and how it impacts farmers and eaters.
I am growing diversified vegetables on land that's been in our family for 150 years.
And so with the pandemic, gentrification, property values going up, we had to sell the land and we lost it.
Join us as we uncover the untold stories behind this massive piece of legislation that shapes how we grow our food, what we eat, and so much more.
The problems we have had, those are things that come from earlier Farm Bill and USDA policy, right? Like Earl Butz, get big or get out.
You know, it's my responsibility to know not only what I'm eating, but then like how that all came to be. And realize like, wow, like this piece of legislation, all this money, like it's technically something that I support as a taxpayer.
While Congress debates the next Farm Bill, this is not just an invitation to listen. It's a call to action. Be part of the conversation. Subscribe to the Farm Report on Heritage Radio Network, wherever you listen to podcasts.
This episode is brought to you by Roberta's, home of Heritage Radio Network for 10 years. Learn more about Roberta's at robertaspizza.com.
Hello and welcome to Snacky Tunes. I am one half your host, Darren Bresnitz. I would love to dedicate this episode to Oliver Armin Bresnitz, my wife and I's new son. He's about a month old and he is totally awesome. Oliver, we love you. Super excited to be sitting down with chef, owner, Johnny Lee of Pearl River Deli. If you haven't been, incredible Chinese food in LA's Chinatown. We talk about the pandemic. We talk about his relationship with Hain and Chicken. And we talk about him cooking food that he considers authentic while having a conversation with others about what they consider authentic. It's a really insightful and delicious conversation, and we hope you enjoy it. Then we have brothers Casey and Keaton from Raised on TV. They talk about their new album, Fernando, which they're releasing as singles only, with the full album released in September. We talk about them building a recording studio during the pandemic and what it means to go home creatively. So please sit back, relax, and enjoy Snacky Tunes here on HRN.
We talk about food, we talk about music, with musical dudes, finger on the pulse, Snacky Tunes. Take me all the way. The answer was staring right back at my face. And I think to myself, how often is that the case? Won't you take me all the way? So now I'm sitting here, just loudly talking to myself. Take me all the way. Breaking up the piggy banks just to pay the rent. Looking for the change in between the couch. Cause I had something to say, but you stole the words from my mouth. So now I'm sitting here, just talking to myself.
Johnny, hello, how are you? Welcome to Snacky Tunes. How are you?
I'm great. glad to be here.
So, I think the first time I read about you or heard your name was in this Eater article about Hainan chicken. And I would say a lot of people associate you with that dish. And I remember you with the rubber chicken and it being sort of an eye-opening article into a dish and type of cuisine I never heard of before. I would say that you really popularized the dish in LA and beyond. How do you feel about being tied to that dish or known for that dish? And do you feel any responsibility to it as you've continued on in your career?
To be honest, like, I think the joke around the shop is that, like, everyone's like, we all hate Hainan chicken. Because we don't like, it's become because it's so popular and we have to make so much of it. It kind of takes over like the entire identity of the restaurant, and also it takes up so much more time preparing it because we have to make so much of it now.
Yeah, I remember when there was that burger craze back in 2008, 2009, and so many restaurants, while they were excited to sell so many burgers, ultimately felt that they couldn't run a real restaurant or the restaurant they wanted to because they were just focused on one dish.
Yeah, it's a challenge because, this dish ends up paying all your bills. And then you also want to do other things creatively,
So I want to go back a little bit. You were born in China, but immigrated to East LA and eventually wound up in Arcadia SGV. What was it like growing up there? Who cooked in the family? Was food something that was important to you growing up?
I wouldn't say that food was like important in my mindset when I was growing up, but it was something I looked forward to. On Sundays, we would make the usual trips to Chinatown for grocery shopping, like a lot of Chinese American families did. And then going to a restaurant or dim sum was actually like one of the highlights of the week because that food was always so different from what we ate at home.
And who cooked in the family? Mom, dad, grandma? Was it a collective effort? Were you allowed in the kitchen as a kid?
As a kid, I don't think I wasn't allowed in the kitchen, but I don't think I tried to be in the kitchen. Usually that was my mother's domain, so I didn't really enter much. Sometimes my father would do some cooking too. It always seems like in Chinese American families, it's always like the mother cooks certain dishes and maybe the father cooks certain dishes maybe like once or twice a year.
Now, I know that chicken is a big part of your life now, but you've mentioned before that chicken was a big part of your life growing up. What was the importance of that specific type of meat?
Yeah, I mean, chicken is something that's very affordable for most families. I think in Cantonese cuisine, a poached chicken is kind of like one of the easiest meals you can prepare for your family. One chicken, you can buy a chicken and it usually feeds a family of 3 or 4. All you need to do is, a pot of water and some aromatics like scallions and ginger, which are usually pretty cheap, and you just poach it with some salt water. And, you have dinner on the table in like 40 minutes.
Yeah. So even though you grew up around food and you look forward to dim sum, that doesn't automatically bring you into the professional culinary world. What drew you into cooking in restaurants? How did you get started on your professional career?
So after I graduated college, I got out of college right during the financial crash of 2008. So it was a great time to be looking for a job. So I just got into the restaurant business via working for my friend of my mother's who opened a restaurant in the state of Colorado. So I moved over there for a bit because they needed help with someone who could speak English. It was a Chinese American style restaurant. And then I just got there and I just kind of like learned to love like the pace of the work and like the type of work.
It was interesting because 2008, 2009, food was more well known in the mainstream, but not what it's like now with social media and people, getting famous off of that. How did you feel about, changing professions and going into a kitchen?
I think for me I think it was something I was kind of all like starting to get interested in the coming years. Up to that point, I was watching a lot of cooking shows. I was getting to cooking on my own in college, but I hadn't really thought of it as a real career. Um,
Mm.
at the same time, I didn't really have a clear idea of what I wanted to do in my life. I thought I'd just, go to school, get a degree in business, and join the professional office world. But having did like an internship in office, I kind of quickly realized that it wasn't for me.
Yeah.
So I think for me, cooking just seemed a lot more interesting, and I think the 2008 uh, financial crash kind of gave me an excuse to get to jump into the field.
Yeah, I mean, I think, and we'll get to this in a little bit, but the parallels between what happened in 2008, 2009, and then what's been happening the last year, very similar, especially how it's affected the relationship with the restaurant world and those who got into the restaurant world.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot of similarities. The difference now is in 2008, people were willing to work for anything because there weren't any jobs.
Mm.
So, everybody was happy to take kitchen jobs for at the time it was like $9 or $10 an hour for minimum wage.
Yeah.
And there was a lot of people, and that's when the whole celebrity chef craze was really starting to take off. So, a lot of people were eager to jump in the kitchens for low pay.
Right, because they thought they could see it as a quick rise to fame, especially if you did something like a food truck or, were just out there doing something a little bit louder than everyone else.
Yeah, totally. And then everyone's told to follow their dreams, their passions.
Yeah. So, you've cooked in a variety of different places, but you wind up focusing on a very specific or, your own style of Chinese cuisine. How did you land on the type of food that you wanted to cook and ultimately dedicate your culinary career to?
I think there were multiple reasons for me to get to this point, where part of it was growing older and kind of seeing the next generation of my family, my nieces and nephews. I kind of noticed that a lot of people in my age group didn't really know how to cook the food, or they kind of knew they're familiar with dishes, but very, very most of them didn't really know, or they just relied on their parents to tell them how to make certain things, or they still relied on their parents to make certain dishes. Like the annual rice dumplings that we call jung. That's wrapped in the bamboo leaves. Most people don't know how to do it. They have a vague idea of how it's assembled, but the actual skills on how to wrap it and tie it, that's still something that most Chinese Americans of my generation, they kind of rely on their parents, usually their mothers, to do that. And I know so not a lot of people actually have learned to do it themselves.
So do you see yourself as a steward of classical preparations? Because I know that you're very vocal on social media about you have your take, and then sometimes people have their own take, and there's sort of a disagreement at times. But, when you have your food, you very much taste the tradition and see the techniques that have a lot of legacy.
Yeah, so for me, I think I want to highlight the fact that Cantonese cuisine is a lot more varied than what a lot of us Chinese Americans think it is, because a lot of us grew up with a very, how should I say, narrow viewpoint of what Cantonese cuisine should be based on what we ate at home and what we ate growing up. But the cuisine itself is extremely varied based on the geography, because it encompasses such a large region of China. So I think one thing is I always want to highlight what Cantonese cuisine has always been in China, but also what it's becoming, because the food has constantly kept evolving after we left the country, and migrated to America. So, you see there's a lot of Asian American communities where like the food is like a time capsule from the era that they immigrated. So like Vietnamese food oftentimes is like, some people say it's like stuck in the 70s and 80s, you know. It's similar for Chinese food. Like a lot of the immigrants that immigrated from China, to at least the Cantonese immigrants, were like Toisan Chinese, which is where I'm from. And that region is not actually really known for like being a culinary like capital. It's actually a very low, like a high poverty, like poor area of China. And like a lot of the culinary traditions that we have here from immigrants in the 80s and 90s kind of reflects that.
Got it. I mean, your cuisine's very inclusive, right? It's unique and very open to trying different dishes as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think people need to also. I think there's also this like interesting, how should I say, opinion in the Chinese American community. Like people don't view Americanized Chinese food as real Chinese food.
Mm-hmm.
There's often we have a term for it in Chinese. We call it pretty much we call it white people's Chinese food.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's kind of a bad way to look at it, because like if you look at Cantonese immigrants in other Asian countries, they've always adapted the food to those local countries. So like there's Cantonese food in like Thailand and Vietnam, and Singapore is heavily influenced by Cantonese food, and it's interesting to see how it's evolved there. Being that Hainan chicken is kind of like one of the dishes that has come out of that immigration. So I think like for me, I also like to highlight the Cantonese cooking of the Cantonese diaspora that's ended up in other countries. So, that's why I tend to dabble a lot into Singaporean Chinese, because I find that very fascinating.
Yeah, I mean, it's really amazing to show how there are more similarities than differences when you start cooking the food and looking at the different through lines.
Yeah, I kind of view as like there's like how Tex-Mex has become such its own thing,
Sure.
in America, and you can trace its origins to like being influenced by American and Mexican traditions. And like I don't, and yeah, like I kind of view like Chinese American food in a similar vein. It's kind of taken on its own identity, and I think we should appreciate it for what it's done for. It's definitely helped a lot of families economically, put their kids through college and everything. So I don't think we should discount it as not a real cuisine.
I agree with you. Well, we're going to take a quick break, and we come back. We're going to talk about Pearl River Deli, how that got started, and some of the additional food that you've been taking up and putting on the menu, addition to dealing with COVID and a lot of other things that happened last year. We have a song from the archives here on Snacky Tunes on heritageradionetwork.org. Welcome back to Snacky Tunes. We are here with chef owner Johnny Lee of Pearl River Deli. And for those who are unfamiliar with Pearl River Deli or who haven't had the pleasure of eating there, I feel sorry for them, but would love to hear the story of how you wound up opening and why you picked Far East China Plaza in LA's Chinatown as a location to open up.
Yeah, so I had at the end of 2019, I had just relocated back to Los Angeles after spending a year in Chicago, and I kind of didn't have any plans. I just knew that I needed to probably do something to kind of stay relevant and keep my name out there and make a little money. So I went back to planning pop-ups, and I had already had this Pearl River Delta brand that I was experimenting with over the years. So I was going to continue that, and at the time, coming into 2020, Bauhaus had recently closed down here in Far East Plaza. So the landlord offered me the space to do a pop-up for Chinese New Year's. And, around the time, I think COVID was still just kind of like a rumor. People were just like kind of whispering about it, but nobody took it very seriously. So it wasn't until we took over the space about a week before Chinese New Year that things started to sound like it was getting serious. And then, so we started to pop up, intending to only stay for maybe like 2 or 3 weeks. And then, we just kind of like, after Chinese New Year, we decided to stick around a little bit longer, just to try it for like another month or so. And then, the response was pretty good. So I was kind of thinking like maybe we should stay here a little longer if we can. And then in March, when the shelter in place order happened, everything kind of shut down. And I was like, I'm not sure, but at the same time, I had nothing else going for me. So I decided, you know what, if I can make this work, maybe I'll just work by myself and work with one other person. And we'll just, as long as we can kind of pay the bills, let's just try it out, because like, what else am I going to do? And at the time, like, we didn't know how serious this was going to get, right? Because if I knew how bad it was going to get at some point, I might have reconsidered. But, I was kind of naive, thinking like, well, maybe this will be okay. Maybe it'll blow over in a few weeks or a few months.
Why would you have reconsidered? Only because when I think of the short list of restaurants that at least appeared to do well and navigate the pandemic, I put you guys at the top of the list of people who were able to come out of the pandemic, build a great following, and, really have a good business.
I think because if we had one day it's like I was seeing how much like so many people were getting out of unemployment. So I was like, I probably would have made more money sitting at home not doing anything than doing this,
Right.
Like, to be honest, like, because in the beginning, like, I wasn't really paying myself much anyway. And, like, there was a lot of, like, uncertainty. So, like, what if like, this doesn't work out? I just spent, like, all this time not paying myself, just for this business to fail,
Right. I got you. But you've come out, I don't want to say we're on the other side, because I would think that's probably ignoring the global issue and the continuing issue with COVID. But as LA starts to lift restrictions and we're all looking at this June 15th date of what it's going to mean, you did come out after a year with a business. What were some of the highlights, and what are some of the thoughts that goes through your head as LA County starts to change?
Yeah, I mean, I think in retrospect, I think things turned out pretty well for us. I think one of the main advantages of the pandemic was that the expectations of restaurants like were suddenly like very drastically changed. I think a lot of people ended up becoming more sympathetic with restaurants because of the situation, and I think people became very, like, a lot of people were very accommodating to certain things. Like, okay, well, we're not going to offer seating anymore. Like everyone's more understanding that like everything has to be takeout. But they don't complain if like the fried food that you sent out is not crispy anymore. Because well, that's just how it is, right?
Sure.
So people became a bit more like understanding of the situation, and I think we kind of took advantage of that by deciding that I was always, when I opened this, I was always under the impression that like I was going to be cooking just whatever the hell I wanted. So we got so, and I had a lot of different things I wanted to try. So it ended up being like, well, every week I just ended up cooking something different. And then we started like getting this expectation that like every week we have specials, and then it would turn out like, and then it somehow ended up being every week or every 2 weeks I would like come out with like 3 or 4 special dishes, and sometimes there would be like a theme to it. And I think people wanted something. Even during the pandemic, they wanted something interesting still, And I think we try to keep doing things that were interesting to us, and I think people responded pretty well to that. Usually people tend to like just want something consistent, or they want the same thing every week. And I think we were offering something. I think we were still trying to be ambitious, and I think people appreciated that, despite the times.
And despite the size of the restaurant, because if you've never been, it's on the smaller side, but the amount of food that you pump out and the specialties is really inspiring and impressive.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's only possible because I'm willing to work like on my days off, and
Sure.
like I'm willing to like come in on my days off in order to do certain things, like to make to like jumpstart some things and make sure that like when we tried doing like experimenting with like roast duck, I was here on my days off, like air pumping the duck with the not hydraulic, the air compressor,
Yeah.
and like setting up a fan inside the fridge, to like blow dry it on the days we were closed, so that like by the weekend the skin was like super dry,
I know. So, COVID wasn't the only thing that we've, as a society, dealt with last year. There's been a lot of anti-Black sentiment, a lot of anti-Jew sentiment, and a lot of, anti-AAPI sentiment. Have you had to deal with any of that? And how have you navigated, some of the responsibility that you maybe feel as a restaurant that focuses on Chinese cuisine?
Yeah, I mean, I've definitely thought a lot about, the whole Black Lives Matter movement and how we can be better and be supportive, At the same time, I didn't want to appear to be virtue signaling anything. Like for us, I think we've always wanted to be genuine about who we are, and, like for us, I think we're pretty inclusive in terms of like who we associate with, who we want to promote, who we want as customers. And, I just generally believe that I want to treat everyone with respect. So for me, seeing all this like violence, it definitely disheartens me a bit, but I do feel optimistic when I see the like response from like people forming groups to like, such as the Black Lives Matter movement, those are the kind of things as a business, that if we get to a point where we're more financially, we have a bit more like excess cash flow, that's like things I definitely want to contribute to as a business, which unfortunately I haven't really been able to, because like we're still kind of like not just barely breaking even, but we're not like extremely profitable yet. But we hope to get to that point, and then we can actually put kind of like align our financial contributions with like what we really believe.
No, of course. I mean, do you feel that a restaurant does have a responsibility to the community, and at some point to give back? should be a part of where restaurants are going as people start to reconsider restaurants' roles in society?
I've always kind of thought that restaurants had this like unfair like position of being an intersection of like culture and economic issues and race issues, and like we're a very low margin business. Our influence financially is carrying pretty minuscule. But I think because everybody has to eat, everybody has to gather at restaurants, we become a visible gathering place for all these issues. So I think as a restaurant, I think it's important that if you support, these ideals, I definitely think you should. Try to contribute where you can, but at the same time, it's tough. Like money wise, I don't know how. I don't think that should expect restaurants to like contribute that many resources because, like I said, it's a low margin business.
No, I agree with you that I think there's individual responsibility with a person or a business, but ultimately there needs to be a larger infrastructure scale to really help with reforms and support financially for society.
Yeah, I mean, as much as I would like to contribute more, like I said, we don't make that much money, and I work a lot of hours, so like my resources are strapped. But at the same time, I am inspired when I see other of my fellow like restaurateurs spend a lot of their time and effort to organize like these like events, like at Steep, they did that anti-Asian hate like a charity sale,
Mm-hmm.
and like the fact that we already are overworked, but we still find time to make these things happen. I think that at least can be kind of like an inspirational kind of like example that like for other people to do more as well. Even though we have our resources are limited, we should still try to make things happen when we can.
So, to bring it back to what we sort of talked about at the very top, why you're known for your Hainanese chicken and your char siu pork, I know that you've started to focus on some other dishes and starting to shift what PRD is going to be as LA starts to reopen. Can you share a little bit about the mental thinking behind the menu shift and how you like to see the restaurant evolve in the next few months?
Yes. So before the pandemic, I kind of had like a vague idea that maybe we'd have this kind of set menu for lunch, and at night we would kind of expand upon it and do some more intricate dishes, to like a smaller set of customers. Certain dishes that just don't make sense anymore economically, just because you can only charge for the price you charge for it. The labor doesn't make sense, right? There's a lot of dishes like that in Chinese cooking where there's a lot of time spent on the preparation, and a lot of restaurants don't bother making those dishes anymore just because for them it's just easier. But it's much easier for them to make like 100 stir fries rather than 10 of these other like a beggar's chicken, which is like a depot, like a stuffed chicken dish that you like bake in clay, But then for me, those are the dishes that are most interesting, and I want to preserve. So I think for us moving into the reopening, I want to create like an opportunity for us to showcase these dishes and still make a business case for them. So for me right now, I think we're looking at trying to start like what I call like dinner service, which is going to be a menu that's going to be take some of our current menu, but also add special dishes that we're only doing for dinner, and mostly only for dine-in, because a lot of these dishes will not travel well at all. They have to be eaten on the spot because that's kind of like one of our pillars of Chinese cuisine is that freshness is important. So dishes that cooked, you should eat it right away.
Well, Johnny, that all sounds amazing, and I can't wait to come back in for lunch and to come out for dinner. If people want to follow along about the menu and check out the specials and see some of the behind the scenes stuff, where can they go? How can they check stuff out?
We're very active on Instagram. I think that's usually the best way to stay up to date. We do update our menus on like Google and online as much as we can. But for up to the minute, like last minute specials, definitely follow us on Instagram. Check out our stories, and we'll make announcements pretty soon about the whole dinner menu stuff. Right now, we're still kind of like in the testing phase. And we should be opening up to taking reservations soon for outdoor dining. And we're just gonna start doing it on Fridays only for now, just to kind of figure stuff out, because we've been a takeout only restaurant for the last year. So
Sure.
Going back to like actual table service and figuring out that what we need, and using non-disposable, plateware. I think we're going to ease into it, and hopefully we can expand to doing more than just Friday nights. Multiple nights a week. But we're just going to kind of take it slow and ease ourselves into it.
Awesome. Well, I can't wait to come and eat. Thank you for making the time. We have another song from the archives and then a live performance here on Snacky Tunes on hrn.org.
My name is Brandon Hoy, co-owner of Roberta's, a super duper awesome place. Roberta's is a very, 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 very proud sponsor of the Heritage Radio Network. We're also super awesome. Thank you, Heritage.
Keaton and Casey, welcome to Snacky Tunes. Thank you for making the time, and excited to hear some songs coming up later in the show. How you guys doing?
Good, Darren. Good, man. Thanks for having us.
Yeah, doing well.
Yeah. So you guys are native San Fernando Valley, and for those who aren't familiar with the scene, the music scene there, what was it like when you're growing up? How has it evolved? What's it like now?
Oh, man. Should I go first on this one, Casey?
Yeah.
All right. It's definitely, I don't know. I feel like it's changed for sure. When I was younger, there was definitely more of a rock scene, and specifically punk rock. That's all pretty much kind of died away. There were more rock clubs as well that have closed down. So that's kind of depressing. It's kind of sad, if I'm going to be honest. But yeah, there's definitely still, there's still a scene in there. Of course, we've been going through the pandemic, and we'll see how things shape up once we kind of come out of that this summer. But yeah, a lot of places have closed down. Like there's the place, the Satellite, which has been a great venue for many years in LA. And they, as far as we know, they're done with music. And there's been a lot of venues that have shut down. But yeah, well, how about you, Casey?
I would say that in the valley, I would say that it's definitely been dwindling, and then with COVID, that definitely made it a lot less. And even the ones outside the valley have been dwindling, and it's been interesting.
Live music really took a hit with almost no relief, unlike other industries like restaurants or things like that. There was live streaming and things like that, but it was just, there's nothing you can really do. And there's still a bit of a question mark of when it's going to come back in full.
Truly. Yeah. I mean, music and live music needs a crowd of people, and crowds of people are dirty and sweaty and sexy. And no, I was going to say, there was this one place when I was younger called the Cobalt in the San Fernando Valley. I don't know if you remember it, Casey, but it was cool because it was a rock club. It was all about rock music, and like a lot of bands that came from the valley back in the day got their start there, like bands like Incubus and Hoobastank. But yeah,
I was actually there.
Yeah,
I was there for their last show. Yeah, I think it was like 19.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah, one of the first shows I ever played was there. But yeah, so that, just kind of thinking back on like how the scene used to be and what was around and what's gone. That was one place that I remember that was cool. Cobalt.
So your brothers, how did you two get into music? Did you share music and bands growing up? Did you guys swap, or was it I got my people, you got your people, or maybe you swapped favorite records and things like that?
How about Casey? You go first, man, because I went first in the last one.
I would say that for music, I definitely grew my taste from Keaton, and then also our sister Victoria. And then so I didn't actually start playing music until I was about 20 because of a friend. And then once we started playing, I started developing more of skills. And then Keaton was doing music with a few friends. And then basically we, on separate projects, ended and then realized that we could start together. And so that's how Race on TV became a thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you could start a band with anyone, and obviously, Keaton, it sounds like you did, but what drew you to each other? What was it about being brothers and starting a band together that really sparked that, creative process, but then also, wanting to go through that creative push and pull with someone you're related to?
Yeah, maybe I'll say I think there's something about working with someone that you can rely on, and that you can like fully trust, not just creatively, but just like on a personal level, I don't. That goes a long way. It goes a long way in this world and in this music industry, this music business that's full of crazy people. It's full of liars and thieves.
Definitely adds a fun and an elastic feel to it, where it doesn't feel like there's tension.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely fun because I feel like, you know, when you're out on the road and you're touring or you're in the studio and you're working on something and maybe things get like tense for a moment, it definitely tests bands and it tests relationships. And you either got to be like really close friends that maybe grew up together, or you just have like a really good understanding of each other, or you kind of got to be family or on that level. So to actually be brothers, to actually be family, it really just kind of like it lends itself to a very strong foundation on any kind of project, but definitely with music.
Definitely, it definitely shows how someone can react under pressure too, and the ability of us being able to handle any kind of situation definitely helps.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's get into a song. I think the first one you have up for us is "Soul on Fire." What's the story behind
that's
that
off of our
track?
second album, Season 2, and it was a single, and we just kind of it came about. It was before COVID and everything. Although it kind of sounds like it's about COVID because it's like the chorus is all about like getting outside and you know being in a place where you feel alive. But yeah, I wrote it. It was kind of about like trying to separate yourself from like your phone and social media and like just constantly feeling like we're hooked on that. So yeah, it was just kind of like about getting away from that. And yeah, it's like an upbeat kind of rock song. And this live recording was from a tour that we did in 2019.
Awesome. Well, here we go. Raised on TV, live on Snacky Tunes on HRN. Welcome back to Snacky Tunes. Here with Keaton and Casey, Raised on TV. So, I mean, it's weird to say we're at the end of the pandemic because depending on where you are in the world, it is not the end. But here, at least in LA, in America, cases are dropping. And I think a lot of people use the pandemic in different ways. And you guys went into the studio. What was the decision to do that? And did you bring material from before? Because you said That's on Fire sort of sounds like before the pandemic, but obviously writing, there's all these things and emotions and feelings and themes that maybe made sense in March, the first week of 2020, that by like the second week of 2020 in March didn't make sense anymore. So what was the impetus to get the studio, and what were you bringing in creatively?
Yeah, great questions, man. Should I go first on this one, Casey?
Sure.
All right. So yeah, we got in the studio just because we needed to do something. We had a bunch of songs that we had written in 2019, and we got in the studio with someone, and it kind of didn't work out. It didn't come out the way we wanted it to, and that's kind of like a long story. But what we ended up doing was we built our own studio basically. And I used to do a lot of recording and stuff, and it was something I kind of got out of and just kind of focused more on writing and playing. But during the pandemic, there was a lot more time on our hands, and so me and Casey, in our practice space, we converted it into a studio as well. We got some gear, got this cool old mixing board, and kind of learned how to use it. And so we got in the studio. That didn't work out, and then we built a studio, and then we recorded a whole album that we called Fernando after the San Fernando Valley, where we grew up and where we live and where we're from. And it was mostly material that was written before the pandemic, but tracked during it. And Casey, how about I'll shut up and you pick it up, man.
Take it away.
I don't know, wherever you want. Fernando.
Definitely a lot more of a free experience with recording because it wasn't in a studio and no pressure with it. It was just you and me. And so it just made all the recording a lot more fun.
Totally. Yeah, we were going for kind of like a more gritty garage rock kind of sound from what we did on our second album, which was a lot more polished, which is awesome too. But we really wanted to go for like this, what felt to us at the time like a truthful kind of sound. So that's why this album is different. It's more garage, and maybe in a sense it's kind of like more of our roots, more of just how we really sound.
Well, I mean, that sort of ties into the naming of the album, because San Fernando Valley, where you're from, and the name Fernando.
Yeah.
What made you want to name it after your home, or at least a homage to your home? And what was it about returning to your roots during this time that was so important to you?
We had originally named it Season 3 to go along with our pattern of Season 1, Season 2 for our albums. And we kind of just felt like it was time to change it up. We used to be a 3-piece band. And then in the time before COVID hit and after we put out our second album, we kind of became a 2-piece. And we still play with other guys and everything. But it kind of felt like, all right, let's not name it Season 3. Let's name it something else. Let's kind of start a new pattern, or just a new way of naming our albums. So we just kind of thought Fernando was cool. It was kind of like, it's kind of funny in a way. It's like, it's a guy's name. It can be a guy's name, but it obviously had, more significance to us because it's named after where we grew up, but you don't know that necessarily.
Sure.
There was something kind of quirky about it that I thought was cool. How about you, Casey? What did you like about the name?
Oh yeah, it was just more of a reflection on like the start of where we've always lived, and also always made me think of how there was this one dude in high school that was like I want to say he was like not like a groundskeeper named Fernando. So that always made me
Oh,
laugh.
oh yeah,
Yeah,
that guy was cool, man.
super chill dude. Yeah,
I knew him too. Yeah, he was like
yeah,
groundskeeper, janitor.
yeah.
He was
So
really
that
cool.
always
He
made
was a
me
good guy.
giggle.
Nice, man. I
Yeah,
didn't
no,
think about
definitely,
that.
definitely.
Man, you're just you're really opening it up for each other about the inspiration.
Yeah, it's really come full circle here.
Let's hear another track. I believe you're playing "Strange Times," which I gotta say seems like a pretty good theme song for what we just went through. But
Yeah.
what's the story behind it for you guys?
Yeah, so this one is probably the most COVID related song on our new album, Fernando. It's the first track on the album, and yeah, it kind of thematically had to do with when the pandemic first hit and everything was really strange and everyone was kind of readjusting. And I had written the music and the melody a long time ago, and just kind of had no words for this song for the longest time. And then for some reason, the words just kind of felt right. It felt good when the pandemic was happening, and I was, I'd go to the park with my guitar and try to come up with stuff, and it just kind of stuck.
Awesome. All right, well here we go. "Strange Times" live by Raised on TV on Snacky Tunes on HRN.
All right, let's do it, man. Getting tossed in the washing machine of life doesn't leave you clean. Glasses to find my glasses. You know what I mean. Our gym shorts weren't on. Same old story goes. Then down, right as we go along. Strange times again. There when you need. The hard way, there's no easy way. Strange times again.
Welcome back to Snacky Tunes. We're here with brothers Keaton and Casey, Raised on TV. I really like the way that you're releasing the album. Fernando, which is singles only, but also each one is tied to a video. Um, I've seen the singles only, never as a cohesive album though. I've seen, singles a day or singles a month. So what made you want to release it as a single, and then what has been the creative process in making these videos and tying it all together?
So yeah, the whole thing behind the singles was kind of just really kind of trying to take into account the music industry now, and just kind of the way it is with people's attention spans, and streaming and Spotify and everything. And um, unless you're a really well-known band, it's really kind of hard to put out an album and
Sure.
have it get its fair, its fair it's fair due. Have people really kind of listen to it front to back and have every song be heard. So we just kind of felt like putting out singles was the best way to kind of hopefully get as much attention as possible, because every single is a new chance to really kind of to market it and spread it around on every platform, and maybe get new fans every time, so it's kind of like spreading the load, versus just kind of just busting it all out in one album load, which, I wish we could do that, do a couple singles and then do an album or something. But it's also kind of cool to do singles too, and just kind of see how each single does and how people respond. And sometimes you get surprised, like, oh, I didn't think that single would get that much love, or you're surprised in a bad way. It's like, oh, I thought that single would do great, and no one seemed to care. But then it's like, all right, time for the next one. Let's keep going.
Yeah, I mean, it's sort of all about getting on playlists these days, and that only really works as singles.
Totally, and that's a part of it too. Because with Spotify specifically, they let you submit, every song to their editors and all that to get on the bigger playlists. But if you put out an album, you can submit one song off of it, but then the rest of the album, it doesn't get a chance to be submitted. So
languishes at times.
Yes.
So let's talk a little bit about the videos. What's the inspiration? Do they all tie together? Each one has its own different feel. They're pretty fun. They feel very, tying back to the home vibe, like sort of home movies, sort of dreamy, ethereal, hanging out. What was the thought behind them? How are you making them? Is there a plan after they're all done to do something bigger with them?
Yeah, as far as the videos, I mean, we kind of had to think in a way where it's like, all right, how can we be creative and make something cool with less money? Because if you're doing 11 videos for a whole album, you spread yourself thin in a sense, but it kind of gives you a chance to make more. But you kind of have to be more creative with less. So it's kind of like a challenge. So we come up with ideas like, all right, what can we make with almost no money in one day? Or what can we make with a friend of ours running the camera, and it's just you and me? So it's kind of like, it's like very limited in what our resources are, but it's like, it challenges you. So it's like, all right, let's come up with something. What would be cool? It's like, all right, how about we do a video that's all one take, and it's just me, walking, singing the song at sunset or sunrise or whatever. Or let's do something where like I'm on my bike and you're on your skateboard. This is so. And then we happened to find at that time like a bunch of old home movies that our dad had taken, like from old baseball games and stuff. So it's like, well, it might be kind of cool if we do an edit where we're kind of we're doing our thing now, and then we splice in this old footage. So that was the video for In the Valley. And we have a video that we're about to make for one of our new singles that we're pretty excited about, where Casey's going to play a cop and I'm going to be a guy being chased in a foot chase while singing the song. And it's like a 2-minute song. So and it's called Mess I Made. So it kind of works, thematically.
Well, that's awesome. I mean, I think it's, I think to your point, if you have a lot of money and you have a lot of well-known, that you can go that more traditional route. But if you're just trying to be creative, I think you just got to think about it truly in a creative, scrappy way that gets some love and gets some notice, and just do things that feel good to you as an artist as well.
Definitely, man. Yeah, scrappy is a good word to use, because that's kind of what it ends up being. But it can have more heart in a sense too. It's like, I feel like it's kind of cool. Like, it kind of reveals something about you as a band or as an artist.
Yeah, when you take a little of that monetary sheen off of it, you see something a little bit more real.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, look, I want to make sure we get in enough time for one more live song. I know you mentioned "In the Valley" as one of the videos, and that's one of the songs that we want to hear. What is the story behind this track?
Yeah. So, "In the Valley," it's a piece of music that I wrote a long time ago. A long time ago. I think I might have been in college or something. And I'd kind of written the words for it slowly over the years, and it's just kind of about where you grew up, and then friends that kind of go in and out of your life, and friends that you lose, sadly, and then and just kind of reflecting on all that. And so it's kind of, there's like nostalgia in there, and longing for days that are gone, and then there's also just kind of like trying to pull out the meaning from why things go the way they do, and why you lose certain friends and certain friends you don't.
I think a lot of people were having those thoughts during the pandemic as well.
Yeah.
So listen, Thank you guys for making the time. If people want to check out the albums and the videos, or follow along as you guys start thinking about touring again as America starts to open up, where can they follow you? Where can they find everything?
So yeah, you guys can find us at raisedontv.com for sure. Spotify, Apple Music, Pandora, Deezer, all the streaming sites. We're there. We have a new album, Fernando, that's going to be, all of it's going to be released by September of 2021. And we're putting out singles in the meantime. And what else, Casey? What did I forget?
Did you say Twitter?
No, I didn't.
Also Twitter.
Big on Twitter.
Good old Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. We're there, man.
All of them. Well, listen, thank you guys. Thanks to Johnny from Pearl River Deli. Thank you, HRN. Thanks, Matt. Thanks, Greg. Thank you, everyone. And we will see you next time. Here we go, In the Valley, live on Snacky Tunes, Raised on TV. We'll see you next week.
Somewhere deep in the valley, a kid quietly screams, "Please save me from what is really not sure." He rides his bike to a path on that lonely edge. Smarter, not so sure. We talk about food, we talk about music with musical dudes. Finger on the pulse, snacky tunes.
Thanks for listening to Heritage Radio Network, food radio supported by you. For our freshest content and to hear about exclusive events, subscribe to our newsletter. Enter your email at the bottom of our website, heritageradionetwork.org. Connect with us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at heritage_radio. Heritage Radio Network is a nonprofit organization driving conversations to make the world a better, fairer, more delicious place. And we couldn't do it without support from listeners like you. Want to be a part of the food world's most innovative community? Rate the shows you like, tell your friends, and please join our community by becoming a member. Just click on the beating heart at the top right of our homepage. Thanks for listening.